Welcome to Marketing Rebels Breaking Business Barriers. You've joined us today for a special series called Marketing Momentum for Mental Health. And we have Carole Jean here today. She's going to hop on here and tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Shauna. So excited to be here. This is a definite hot topic in my world because everything I do is around our energy mastery and the relationship that we have with our energy every day.
That's perfect. Hey, look, usually we kind of sit here for a little while, but let's just dive in because truly your world is this. It is mental health. It is sustainability and all the things that you do in life and in business because you're an entrepreneur as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about the starting point of your experience with mental health, personally and professionally, of course?
Personally, it started at age 6 when I had my very first burnout experience. And for most people, they think, oh gosh, that's so young. But in my global spicy research over the last 3 years, what I am discovering is that this is not so unusual, especially in developed countries, Canada, the United States, Australia, United Kingdom, and parts of Europe. And the reason we start to see burnout happening at such an early age, and I was born in the 70s, y'all. So, you know, I will be 50 this year. So this is something that has been around for a while. This is a conversation that people just have not been having because it hasn't been something people recognize. And the way that it showed up for me was starting preschool and around age 4, because it was then that my environment was changing. The demands were changing. And that is truly the heart of where we start looking at our energy management. How do I regulate myself? How is my environment? How is, what is my schedule? What are the things that I'm doing? But it mainly comes back to who am I being? And for so many of us, from a very early age, we start masking and camouflaging. We start to try and live up to the quote unquote expectations, the societal norms that we perceive. Well, this followed me for 40 years, 4 decades, and I experienced some level or degree of burnout for that entire time. Whether it be a ghost pepper level 5 when you're so hot you're not, or, more towards the jalapeno level 2 where you just got a little extra spiciness happening.
Right.
But that fell into and followed me into my career and my work life. So much so that at one point in my career, I experienced the worst burnout of my life, where I was a ghost pepper level 5, and I had a degree of 10 out of 10 in the degree of heat, which meant it was so hot that my entire body started to shut down. Because when we're talking about our mental well being, what we are also talking about is not just our thoughts, not just our emotions. We are talking about our physical existence because our body is what sustains and how we all integrate. It isn't just one element or another. It is this holistic homeostasis within all of these components. And how are we looking at ourselves not as individual parts of who we are, but as a whole? And that really does transform how our energy shows up for us to live our passions, to live our dreams, to thrive and do the things that we are so incredibly joyful about in our life.
The idea of having that mind-body connection, people are always blown away by it, aren't they? People are blown away. And I find it a little bit funny from the point of view of even neurology, because we talk about mindset and mental health and mental well-being, and your mind is a part of your body. So it would make sense that if there is some sort of if your brain is not functioning at its peak, your body's going to have certain physiological responses. And so if you get to the point where you're 10 out of 10, you're hot and spicy, right in the thick of it, ready to completely give up, burnout, makes sense that your body's going to feel it too. Your body's going to start, if it hasn't already, getting sick, slowing you down, maybe even like stopping functioning. I've seen people be admitted to hospitals. Cause of ailment, stress. And yet we're not taking this seriously. Not seriously enough to open the door to have the conversation so that more people can recognize, which is a really important word that you used right off the get-go. People aren't recognizing. So how can we put ourselves in our community globally even? Really, let's start small, but move onward. I'm always about big picture. How can we move us into a space where we can recognize and support ourselves and those around us when we see we're leaning over, we're getting into at least the beginning levels of burnout here? What can we do?
The first place is to start recognizing that I use the 20 major warning signs that you may be experiencing burnout. And it's really important to recognize that there are two elements to burnout. There's an external piece and there's an internal piece. And when we are experiencing burnout, we are recognizing, we are feeling, we are thinking, we are experiencing the physicality of the internal component of burnout, how it impacts us once it's actively happening, right? Here's the thing though. Once we're experiencing those warning signs, once they are activated and we're going, holy cow, I used to be able to do this particular thing in like 30 minutes. Now it's taking me like an hour and a half. It's just like
In
the
there.
brain fog is kicking in and, all of the things. It's like you find yourself being more irritable. There's all these different elements, more joint pain. So like there's physical, like headaches, there's lower back pain, a lot of GI issues
Mhm.
are some of the most prominent things that I hear about when we're going through these warning signs. But that's the second place that burnout shows up. It's where we recognize it. However, there's the external component to burnout, and it is in our external world where we have burnout signposts, or what I call them. And that is how it starts to show up in our external world. And they're glowing neon signs. But if we don't know what to look for us, each person, then we're going to miss that first place that we could catch it to stop it before we feel it.
Right. Right. And so is this where we're starting to talk about, because you mentioned this right at the get-go, this idea of emotion and energy regulation.
Yeah. Oh, energy mastery.
Yeah.
Now, in burnout, we are masters. We are already energy masters. We have mastered where our energy goes out. It is flowing out. We have got holes in our energy bucket, right? We have not yet managed to master how to bring energy in. And it is because it is not talked about. It is because it is not taught effectively. And it's because it is usually talked about in the context of quote unquote self care.
Mm,
And it's usually very vague, very generalized, go have a massage, take a walk in nature, unplug from social media for a little bit. And all of those things do work. However, they are so small and they are sometimes not what is most impactful or effective for the individual. And it is such a tiny component. So we have to really look at such much bigger issues because we are all saying on a daily basis, and 88 to 89% right now statistically, research is showing that that is the number of adults who are currently experiencing some degree of burnout at work right now. However, my research shows that we have 93% of people who are experiencing burnout right now. And not only within that 93%, 33% are experiencing a level 4 habanero burnout,
right.
which means that this is a place where other people are recognizing you're struggling. It's not just you feeling it, it's also other people recognizing it because it's starting to impact and show up in your external world, in your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings and your relationships. This is a big one in our relationships. And especially, if we're entrepreneurs and if we're women and we're moms, then, we have a lot of societal norms and expectations that we've been living to that really impact our energy. And so here's something I want to share that is very, very important. You can't have more energy. We're always talking about, I want more energy. I want to do these things to like up my energy, right? You can't have more energy if you don't have a relationship with energy first, your energy first. And most of us have not had this conversation. We recognize what it feels like when we're tired, when we're drained, when energy is flowing out. But Sean, I'm going to ask you, how often do you pay attention and recognize and with intention feel and experience how energy flows in for you?
Ooh, I love that question. I particularly love it because I have been kind of living in this world, this conversation for a little while. And my answer might be different than many people's answers, but I think of things like, and I feel like this is going to pop up in a lot of the conversations that people are joining us in for this week, but it's because it's my lived experience. I started working with a personal trainer recently, and I cited some things like wanting more energy. And because this person is so good at what they're doing, in particular, not necessarily the training. I mean, I'm assuming that they're good at that too because I've seen results, but I mean more so the headspace, the articulation, the embodiment of the exercises that we're doing. I've started to notice when I'm walking the kids home from school, I've got power. And it's intentional. It's very aware. And I think that's cool. Wow. Now, this is not something that, rewind, this is new. Because typically I wouldn't have thought to myself, wow, there's energy there. And appreciating that space and going, holy cow. I feel like I could go for a walk today. Like, I mean a walk. I mean, I feel like I could walk down to the next town and back and feel good. And I'm cognizant of that and appreciative of that. And I sit with it. Not literally sit. Usually I
Oh,
continue to
I
walk.
love, 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 love what you just said.
No.
Because when we're talking about like typical self-care, and one of the things that I hear most often is, I don't have the energy to exercise.
Yeah.
And, we started this conversation talking about the different components of our energy and of our well-being. And it's not just our mental, it's not just our thoughts, it's not just our emotions, it's also our physical body. And one of the things that I learned about 8 years ago when I started this journey at 42 in particular, I started running for the first time in my life. And before, I've always been an athlete, but I've never been a runner. I'm not really built like a runner.
I hate. Listen,
I'm a tennis
I'm
player.
on
I'm a
board.
volleyball
I'm on
player.
board. Me and running. I've had to have this conversation with my friend. Look, I don't wanna.
But what's interesting is through a search to find, because I do not meditate. I wasn't a meditator. Like it gave me the hives, the heebie jeebies. I couldn't sit still and my brain would not slow down. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Breathe. I can no.
Like I'm holding my
Like
breath.
that was not my jam. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was probably at my physical heaviest because I had also a lot of co-occurring health conditions that burnout was really exacerbating everything, right? It impacts all of these things. And there was just something in me that said, I just have to move my body and I don't care. This sucks and I hate it. This is miserable. I'm in the deep south. I'm sweating. It's like 100 and something degrees and the humidity is like 100%. It's like I could wring water out of the air. But there was this part of me that once I just started, I found this rhythm in my body. And it was that vibration and that rhythm that I started to recognize, holy cow, I'm actually found my own way to meditate. It doesn't make me want to run screaming with my hair on fire. And it was through that I found, I used to think that I had to have the energy to work out and exercise and move my body. But here's one of the things that I teach around kinetic rest, because I teach 7 forms of energy other than sleep, because when you're in burnout, your sleep is crappy. Let's just be honest. Most people's sleep is so disrupted. And it's really hard to get into good sleep. what I found was there are these 7 other forms of energy. One of them is called kinetic energy, and it's about moving your body. And it's not about high aerobic, it's about strategic types of movement. It can be yoga, it can be, I did like gravity body weight movements, but I used to believe that it was going to cost me energy that I didn't have to do it. And so I didn't do it. What I have found and what so many of my clients have discovered, and this is part of one of the workshop things that we do that is so fun. We do dance and music because that's rhythm, vibration, and moving your body, and it impacts all the good stuff, right? All those feel good endorphins and things are coming out. But what I found was when you move your body, when you are physically doing things, they actually make you feel stronger, like you were talking about, right? Like when we feel strong, it impacts our mental well being and our mental state, but it also impacts our energy because we can do something that we're exercising and we think this is going to cost us and we're going to be tired, but we actually gain energy. We gain more than we expend. So we have an ROI, folks. And those of us in business, we want ROIs. That's a big bang for your buck, right? And so it's these types of things. So music, listening to certain types of music, energy has a resonance and a frequency. So love has a vibrational frequency of 528 hertz. Now, here's what's really interesting. There's scientific research into this, and all energy has different vibrational frequencies, right? And they all have different impacts on your body, way that you feel them. That's why you listen to a song that you love and you're like immediately feeling upbeat, you're dancing, you're smiling, right? And when we smile, whether we are doing it by force or by natural things, that actually releases the same exact endorphins that we do if somebody makes us laugh, if we just smile, even if we're faking it, kind of smiling, right? But all of these things have a vibrational frequency. Love is one of the highest vibrational frequencies at 528 hertz. And it is the one that is also called the miracle frequency because that is the exact frequency that is used to repair DNA.
Well, damn. That's beautiful. Like it's poetic. That is poetic, and that's grounded in science. That's grounded in hard sciences, the irrefutable. So every single thing you do, your kinetic energy, your emotional energy, your mental energy, it has the capacity to feed itself, provided, because like we said at the beginning, when I was saying I'm working with a trainer and you didn't like to run, I said, I don't like to run. Well, you need to find the thing that works for you. That's where the asterisk comes in, right? And that can feel really daunting and like an energy suck, because if you try something that doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you, right? Then it really does live up to and fulfill your preconceived notion that it will drain your energy. How do we circumvent that? And can we
play? We can. We got to play. We got to play. I go into big corporations and I do half-day workshops, and I come in and I do 6 of the 7 forms of rest, of energy, right? Of energy recharge. And it's all about play and exploration. The best thing that we can do is to not go in with these stories around who we are if something doesn't, quote unquote, work for us. But it's about the exploration and the play. It's about being playful. And this is one of the most incredible impact places that we can really look at for our energy. And it is how can I play with this? Put your lab coat on. Be the biggest experimenter in your life. There is no judgment here. It is just exploration of what works for me, what's fun, what's light, what's easy, everything that I do. Because we got into burnout by being very serious. Very serious. Like, I've got to be professional and I've got to do all of these things, and this is what it looks like, right? And that is draining. And we forget that play is very professional. Play is one of the most professional things you can do, because when you are more playful, your brain and your body shift into a place of possibility. You're more creative. You're more innovative. You are more connective with other people. And when we're talking about mental health and our well-being, and we're really talking about energy, some of the most beautiful places that we get and gain energy from is in connection with others. That sense of belongingness. There are 3 places in my global research over the last 3 years, and I have conducted this in over 94 countries with over 500,000 people today. And what this shows is in those top 3 areas where we are looking at where our energy is most disrupted, where we are lacking the nourishment that we need as people. Number 1, it's in emotional safety, and not emotional safety with other people. The shocker is, it is internal emotional safety. I feel is safe to feel my feelings. I feel safe to have the feelings in my body, to experience them, and to allow them to be present within me.
That makes perfect sense.
The second most undernourished place that is the biggest energy drain for humans is a sense of belonging. And it is belonging with other people and in with groups of people who get us,
Yeah.
right? Like, I show up and my people, my tribe, they
My
get me,
people,
right?
that's right.
Because like when we talk about like we vibe with our tribe, like you want to talk about the science, there's actually science to that around our vibrational resonance as humans, because everything is energy and vibration. If we want to get into quantum
Love
physics,
it.
we can do that.
Oh, don't get
But
me
when we talk
started.
about belonging, but when we talk about belonging, it's a dual experience of belonging. It's I feel like I belong with other people who get me and I get them, right? But it's also I belong here. I belong within myself.
Right.
I feel and believe that I belong to me.
And that's, I want to ask you a question because I've been working on a few things of my own. I feel and belong within, you said something about within and about myself centered. So can you, if I were to say the words comfortable confidence, is that maybe not synonymous, but close to what you're describing? A comfortable confidence within and about yourself?
If that is yours and your definition, and that is what resonates with what belonging is for you, then absolutely.
Mm.
Because I think it's also one of the most important things is that we define what this experience is for us.
We get, and that's really cool. We get to choose what that is. It's a it's a gift. It's an opportunity. We're going back to play and exploration. You get to choose. That's fun. Now, did I miss something, or is there a third one?
There is a third one. I was hanging on. I wanted to hear what you had to
It's
say
a
first
cliffhanger
about
now. I'm
belonging.
thinking, the wheels are turning. I'm like, ooh, yes. And
The third one, I think, is you're gonna really love this one because, I think what you do in the world, Shauna, is you really embody this and you help other people explore and embody theirs, and it's authenticity. And, we hear that word a lot. It's really become bantered around a whole lot,
a
authenticity,
buzzword.
but the conversation really has to come back with what is authentic? And when we talk about masking and camouflaging being some of the big tools that we use in survival mode, when we are trying to do all the things on our to-do list and be all the things we think all the people in our life expect us to be,
Yeah.
what happens and one of the biggest places that I see the energy drain happen and what keeps people in what I call a chronic cycle of burnout, because there are 5 levels of burnout, from a level 1 poblano pepper where you got a little bit of heat up to that ghost pepper level 5 we've talked about, where you're so hot you're not and everything starts to shut down. But within that, the place that I see energy being consumed and drained away from people the most is where they feel like who they are internally, who they know themselves to be innately, and how they're actually showing up in the world. I call that the integrity gap. And it's not a lack of personal integrity,
Right.
it is a lack of integrity between who you know yourself to be and how you're actually showing up in the world.
Yeah.
And the bigger that gap, the bigger the energy vortex that's sucking the energy out of you. And every person is different. So it's, what does authenticity mean to you? And for a lot of us, especially if, those of us who are women and moms, we have a lot of time people pleased, and we've been in sort of this survival mode, and we've been in some degree of burnout. We've just been managing it very ill effectively, but we've been, doing it, and we just keep pushing through, and we, recharge in these little quick bursts, just enough to keep pushing through to keep all the plates going and not dropping anything, right?
Right.
However, we're juggling everyone else's plates, but not our own.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest places when we talk about authenticity is self-love and compassion, loving kindness. Because when we step into our authentic selves, it is from a place that I unconditionally love who I am, and I am safe to be me. I am safe to feel however I feel. I belong here within myself, and I can own it, baby,
That's
no matter what that is.
ah, that's so perfect. I love that so much. And it's true. And it's something that you have to kind of ease into because it can feel very scary, especially for people who are doing something else that's scary, like running a business, taking care of a family, taking care of yourself, having the courage to switch your attention from one thing to another because you know authentically what will fuel you, what will give yourself love, can be very scary. So, where does then courage come in to all of this?
I think it begins with something more critical first. Courage and vulnerability are crucial. However, it begins with trust. And for a lot of us, our trust in ourselves, our trust in our own feelings, our own thoughts has been disrupted. And we have suppressed it. We've pushed it down.
Mhm.
We have broken trust with ourselves over time because, as we're growing up, as we've experienced the world, and if we have expressed, gosh, that doesn't feel good, or I don't like that, or, that really, I had like a big emotional eruption because that really activated me. That was something that my nervous system did not regulate within that. This was very upsetting to me. And everyone around you says, "What's wrong with you? Why are you overreacting? It's not that big a deal. It can't hurt that bad. Don't cry. Suck it up, buttercup." And so all of these things are reinforcing that we can't trust our own experience of who we are.
That's
And I think before we can be courageous or vulnerable, we have to start rebuilding and sometimes establishing for the first time trust within ourselves.
so some things that kind of came up for me here from just a uh, research, psychological, human condition geek point of view is that what you're describing is what I've actually been diving into in the world of operant and classical conditioning based on our reception and processing of marketing, because I believe that you're never not marketing. And so I'm receiving all of this, and it's like marketing, the marketing you're receiving both overtly and covertly from magazines and TV shows to your friends and families, um, winds up almost gaslighting you into becoming less and less true to yourself, less and less trusting of yourself. Where do you fall on this in this conversation? How do you feel about that? And what have you learned through your research?
Trust is one of the foundational components that we all have. And all of this, it isn't like Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the sense that all of these things must be fulfilled before you move to the next level. And I love Scott Barry Kaufman. And by the way, if anybody knows him personally, please hook me up because I have an intellectual love affair with this man, whether he knows it or not.
Beauty.
He's amazing and I just love him. But he took Maslow's work and he said, look, number one, I've looked at everything, all of his work, and he never developed a pyramid. That doesn't exist. It's not like each thing is conditional on the next level. And I love this because this is so true. And so Scott Barry Kaufman took it and said, okay, we have all of these human needs, right? We have love and belonging. We have physical safety needs. We have self-actualization at the top of this. And it all happens simultaneously. And based on, safety is sort of the bottom of the boat and you don't want holes in your boat. And if we look at it, how our boat is constructed, trust is one of those things. Right? That comes into safety because we don't feel safe in the world if we can't trust how we view the world. And we can't step into authenticity if we don't trust what we're experiencing in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's not like we have, and I'll say this with a lot of love, we have to start with loving ourselves because we don't trust something we despise.
Right.
Can't be authentic if we don't love it first. And I think one of the places that transformed this for me, because I did not love myself. I couldn't tolerate myself. I disgusted myself for a very long time. And I had a mentor give me an exercise for 30 days. And I will share this with you guys. Have fun. It is an exploration that will activate parts of you. And when they get activated, it is a beautiful gift. So you stand in front of the mirror and you look at yourself full on and you say, I love you. And you can say, I love you, state your name. Now, that's where you start. I did that and I went, oh, this is so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not true. I am lying to the person in the mirror and I can't stand the person in the mirror. So I got a little handheld mirror, one of those little round ones you put in your purse. And I held it off to the side and I kind of tilted it where I could see part of my ear and maybe part of my eye. And I said, I'll hold space for you for 10 seconds. That is where I started. But what is really interesting, and I have something I call reflection work that I created as part of the unveiling method in our self-care from the inside out. And it's called reflection work. And we actually engage the mirror neurons. So we're using a mirror, but we're also engaging mirror neurons in our brain.
Love it.
Auditory, because we are a sensory people. We got to remember we don't have 5 senses. We have 7 senses, folks. And all of these things are components of how we experience something. So you can start with whatever feels good for you. It doesn't have to be I love you. It can be I like you. It can be I will hold space for you for 10 seconds. But to say that 10 times and try and do this 3 times a day. So I usually habit stack it. When I started, I was doing it when I brushed my teeth. So I was like, okay, twice a day, I can handle this. I had to work up to it. But what was really mind-blowing for me, and I've seen so many of my clients, everybody starts in the same place, guys. So don't feel bad. It is a point of massive fear and resistance. Your body and your nervous system will be so activated.
Mm-hmm.
This is so painful and uncomfortable, especially if you really don't like yourself at all. And the trust begins here because I can trust that even though I'm doing this and this is really uncomfortable, that there's something more, that it's a possibility. And I believe in being a possibilitarian. And that's Robin Sharma's word. And I just love it. He's so wonderful. But through that, by day 4, I went from that little tiny hair mirror and basically saying, I will just hold space for you for 10 seconds. That's all you get. That's all you're worth, right? It comes to our worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
That on day 4, I had gotten out of the shower and I was putting lotion on my legs. And I had worked up to the big mirror in the bathroom at that point. And I was actually saying, I love you. But I wasn't feeling it. On that day 3, I wasn't feeling it. And I stood there and I went, now, dang it, I want to feel it. I want to feel love for myself. I never even thought about that. I never thought I feel love for other people, but I've never felt it for me. And I want to feel that warm, like spread through my whole body, makes me smile. Oh, yes, goodness. I want to feel that for me, and I don't. And at the time, my sweetheart was sitting on the other side of the bathroom wall at his desk. And I said, I want to feel love. And I just happened to look around the wall and I looked at him and I smiled and I was just thinking, I love you, you handsome hunk of man. I just love you. And my body filled up with that love, that physical feeling of love, that warm, tingly smile, joyful feeling. And I thought, this is it. This is what I want to feel for me. And I went, okay, hold it, lock it in. And I walked around in the door and I stood in front of the mirror and I said, this feeling right here, it's love. And I want to feel this for you. I love you, Carole Jean. And something changed because we have this wonderful thing called neuroplasticity.
Yes.
And something changed. And the next day, I had gotten out of the shower and I was putting lotion on my legs. Now, normally I look at my legs and go, gosh, you got some thick tree trunks and some skater ankles, girl. And do you know, I did not think that. I was putting lotion on my legs and I was laying back on the bed. I was being very, very luxurious and putting lotion on that day. And I looked up at my leg. I'm 5'10". I got long legs. And I looked up at it and I went, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. And I caught myself. And I went, wait, hang on a minute. That is not normally what we say around here.
Yes.
And I went, but I don't feel that way. I actually think they're pretty. It transformed the way I saw myself. But what I've discovered for myself, and what I've had so many clients come back and they have shared with me, and this is the most beautiful place, is that when we start to feel that and we start to experience that love for ourselves, we start to trust it the longer we feel it, and it starts to show up in how we behave, how we choose what we do in life. The compassion, the grace, and the kindness that we give to ourselves. That loving kindness. I had a client last week that told me, I said, how's it going with reflection work? How's it still showing it? This was like, 2 months later, because I still check in as we still touch points, right? And she said, I was doing my energy appraisal and I was thinking, as I looked at my calendar, I've had all of these meetings today. And normally I would push through and try to cram in some stuff at the end of the day because I feel like I was in meetings and I didn't get my to-do list done. And she said, you know what? I said, what? She said, I didn't.
Yes.
I had you in my head. I had me in my heart. And she said, do you know what I did? I said, you know what? I have done enough for today. I turned my computer off and I went and snuggled with my dogs and I went and walked.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And she said, I didn't feel guilty. That's the key. I didn't feel guilty.
Good for her. Man, I love that. And it actually is very empowering if I'm being perfectly transparent, because I've been kind of practicing the same sort of thing for the last quite a while. But I've seen, though, at least the last half a year, that internal permission, letting it be okay. At the end of the day, just to let everybody know, I have a fun, we can call it a resolution. Sure. Because I decided I'm making fun resolutions. I'm tired of these big, I'm going to lose 10 pounds baloney. I'm tired of that stuff. I want to have fun. I want to try this is not my resolution, but I've seen this done. I want to try as many different types of pasta as possible in a year. That's a fun resolution, right? Like, that's awesome. My resolution is to watch all of the Marvel movies in chronological order, not in order of release, in chronological order throughout the year. And so at one point in time, I had been gaslit by my environment to think that was very foolish to spend so much time in front of the television. That's a waste of time. And you're not optimizing your business potential or whatever, all the cause all that.
You're not being productive.
Right? I'm like, guys, and this was the nonsense that I was fed at the beginning of my career. Take TV out of your life. Take this, make sure that you join the 5 a.m. club or listen to podcasts while you work out or whatever. Instead of, like, for me, I would prefer to listen to music while I work out. It amps me up. If I listen to a podcast, it's a little more cerebral and I won't have that positive correlation. You know what I mean? So no, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it for everybody. All this preachy deechy stuff. I know, listen, do what works for you. And for me, At the end of the day, like this lovely woman, I'm recording back to back. I'm showing up for this social media event, this networking event. I'm creating for my clients. I'm doing all sorts of things. And I'm feeling a little bit tired. You know what? Yeah, sure. I've got another hour left that I could be working, but instead I'm going to go upstairs, have a cup of coffee with my husband, and plan what snack we're having while we watch the Avengers tonight. That's just going to be what we're going to do because I can. Number one, I get to. I control it. It's mine, my energy, my time, my life. And I want to live life fully and on my terms. Now, it's been a process. Like you just described, it takes time. I worked with an Ayurvedic health counselor for a long time who was teaching me self-love and compassion, how to look in the mirror and say, I love you, to different parts of my body. It took a long time, like you described. But we can get there. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of really weird feelings, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Lots of uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah, but it's doable. And I just want everybody to know that you have a community here within Carole Jean and myself, as well as everyone else who's participating, who will support you and cheerlead you along your way. Now, that said, Carole Jean, I want to invite you to share some final thoughts about the very wide array of topics we talked about today. And don't forget to invite people to connect with you, because that's something that I strongly advise all of our audience to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, Shauna, and to share my passion and my purpose in the world, which is to help people have a relationship and energy with mastery. Because we've mastered how it flows out, but I want to help guide you to your energy mastery and how it flows in best for you. One of the things that I talk about so often is Shauna said something really important just now. She said, I get to. Not only do we get to, I allow. What are you allowing within your life today? Take a moment and just ask and reflect. What is my relationship with my energy? What do I allow to come into my life? Where do I see the possibilities? And where am I making it light, fun, and easy? Where is the play in my energy? Because there is so much impact when we are light and playful, when we are exploring new things, because so much of this journey can be very uncomfortable. Please join me for a 9-day energy up level over on my podcast, Beyond Chronic Burnout, and we'll dive into some of the barriers and the different elements of energy and energy mastery. And this is a great place to begin, and I love to invite you to join me.
Oh my goodness. Beyond Chronic Burnout. I'll tell you, this is not only a great place to start, but a great place to kind of stay in Carole Jean's world. So please do reach out, and don't forget to like, follow, subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode, not only of this series of marketing momentum for mental health, but also the subsequent conversations that we have here on Marketing Rebels, which address all of these sort of things and more. I can't wait to see you next time. I'll leave you to have a great